man, he had a son and a daughter that maintained a very large section of oyster bars and sold oysters for years over there. And his land was most of this right in here. There was another old timer that had farmed a little bit where all these cows are on the right. And this was a dirt grade with no electric poles going down it. When we had to farm initially, because we had our own power plant and the house was down on the river. There was a house here, not that one, but one of the old farmhouses used to be right along there somewhere. There was an old gentleman that was born in Denmark that was a seafaring man by the name of Selner. And at one time he owned all the property on the right, starting with this lane here and back to the point back out there. And that's what our shell mine came off of. This was all just pine and palmetto because he never cleared it. He didn't want it cleared or anything. Which is this Hereford?
Yes, sir.
Turn in on Hereford. And it was sitting out to where you had view from three sides of the house of the river, because this was somewhat of a little point right here. Mm-hmm. And the other thing was a little cottage, not the back part, but the original part was a little two-room cottage that we had built at the farm where Dad used to go to take his naps every afternoon, and then we moved it up here, and Mary Alice lived in it for a while, she and Shelley, after she separated from Alton. But
so the marina we were at earlier, Shell Point Marina, was like
almost straight. It would have been a little bit of an angle across the river. This is the south channel of the river here.
The little cut we were looking at would be like right down there. Yeah. Almost straight ahead of where we're at.
There used to be a classic tree that had somebody made note of when it was taken out by whoever. I don't know whether it was the current owner or the one before. But there was a tree here that the seafaring man had brought in from the West Indies, from the island somewhere, that was a member of the Ficus family. And it was probably, I don't know, 5 foot through at the bottom, and it had big limbs up in it that were so big. Most all the major limbs were covered with a little fig type thing that was non-edible once a year, and it was a hell of a mess to keep cleaned up and all. And that's probably the reason that people got rid of it. But it was also one of only 3 or 4 trees like it in the state of Florida.
So, you know, when I was young, like all these peppers and stuff down here, following this ditch down, this used to be all clear. I mean, you could see, you'd be looking at the river right now instead of, you know, it was kept, I guess, with people living there and people living here, they kind of let this come up as a...
Yeah, and then the other thing we did, though, was when we settled Dad's estate, we found out that this title, that this right-of-way had never been deeded to the county officially, permanently, by record or whatever you want to call it. And so I was able to do one thing, and whether the other people ever did anything, I don't know, and we could care less. But see where this fence is over here? That's our property to that fence. And it's our property starts at the end of the pavement. As it had been, if the county had ever decided to want to put a bridge across the river, this was one of the most logical places to put it. Mm-hmm. And so they could have just came in here and done that. But what I did was I had the right-of-way end right here where the pavement does, and so that the property from the end of the pavement down along the side of that fence to the river is still part of the property of the Shell Mountain was on. We had, excuse me?
No, it was just there's a rock in their front yard over there with like a contraption back there. What's the difference?
Talking about the anchor?
In the other, oh, is that an anchor?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Right
to your
there.
right, back in their yard.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
It's an anchor.
Oh, that's a she lived after they were not living in a farm tenant house. Is that my phone?
Yes, sir. Kevin King.
Is what?
It's Kevin.
Well, I can't see it. Back seat of the vehicle that Carla is driving, and John Wise in front, and Wesley and Taylor are in here. And we've been riding around to let them look at places in Ruskin that I had to tell them what they were. What are you up to? Well, I'm proud you're working. As long as they pay you, everything's wonderful.
I wish these states was tomorrow.
Okay. No, we spent last night at a place over here because Katrina, Shelleen's oldest daughter, got married yesterday, and we came down for the wedding. And then we're right now fixing to run into Tampa and do something somewhere. And then Polly and I will, she's already in Tampa, and Polly and I will get in the vehicle and head across Highway 60.
He had that flatboat there too, I don't know what it's called. It's kind of...
Remember when I was a kid, there was like a building over here,
Okay.
and they sold plates.
Well, I imagine you'll probably be, if you get off by 5 or so, you'll probably be home before we get there.
Was the family in the phone there?
I don't know.
All right? We
seen that
appreciate it.
right now.
You be careful.
Store or something.
Right. Thank you now. Right.
Pretty big dog crate back there.
Very good.
Large.
Talk to you later.
On the
Bye.
side of the road, looks like it's been drawn away.
So I'm gonna stay on 41, right?
Yes,
Big dog
ma'am.
crate.
Is that a bird?
He was taken in by the Whitehead family from Bradenton. We still, I don't know for sure, but somebody finally said here last year or so that they had, in fact, officially adopted him, but the theory or the comment in the family for all the years was that he was never formally adopted, but he kept the Whitehead name.
And now what about your mother?
Mother was the oldest of 5.
Boys, girls, or what?
Excuse me?
Boys or girls or...
There was mother. The next one was a boy. It was Royce, that's Sammy's father. And then there was, I think, Ellsworth was next. If not, it was Catherine and Ellsworth. I never can remember which is which. But there was 3 girls and 2 boys, and it was my mother and a boy and a boy and a girl and a girl. And the only aunt-uncle relation I have still living is Aunt Werniford, who is now 96, and we stopped by to see yesterday. She is living with her daughter and her daughter's husband.
Is that the little bitty Aunt Winifred? Is she little bitty?
Do I?
Aunt Winifred, is she little bitty?
And she's more little bitty now than she ever was. You feel like you could almost take one hand and pick her up.
And their name was Simmons, is that correct?
Simmons, the maiden name was Simmons, yes. The Simmons family, the Sweat family, of which grandmother was a Sweat, and the Alderman family, and the Jameson family, and 2 or 3 more are all the old families of the area, starting basically with US 301 going east to the county line and north halfway to Plant City. Grandpa would sit on the front porch and, if he had an audience, and tell you about how who was related to who and why and how, and never take the same route, but he'd end up telling you about it. And you always knew that the afternoon session was over when he came up with a story about the fact that his first cousin was the last white man scalped by Indians on the west coast of Florida. That was Bullfrog Creek, which runs through the old Simmons property. On the corner back there was a gentleman by the name of Frank Braxton or Broxton, I can't remember which. And then there was a man close to where the old store building was in Ruskin, whose name was Frank Bramlett. And they were the two top bootleggers on the backside of Tampa Bay back during Prohibition. And from the boat, I could have showed you the house. The house is in total disrepair now and whatever, but somebody still occupies it. But it was one of the finer homes of Ruskin many years ago. But it allegedly had a tunnel from some room in it that came, because it's where it is located, the bluff of the river is about, probably 8 feet, maybe up almost to 10 feet, like above the level of the river. And there was always a story that Mr. Frank had a tunnel that came out from the house to the dock in front of his property where his launch was, and that's where he took his liquor in and out before it was distributed to people. The other story I was going to tell Gus's son was that a good part of the Cuban liquor that came into Tampa during the Prohibition area was dropped off, since the ship channel is fairly close to that bank of the Tampa Bay along in front of the Little Manatee. Instead of being way over toward Tampa, it's on the south side of the bay, or east side rather.
Look at that.
What?
Those boats in the water.
Yeah, look at it. The sailboat's all torn up, trashed.
Some of them.
Yeah, sideways and stuff.
Yeah, some of them.
Well, that's the way we used to clean the bottoms. We put them on a sandbar, and then when the tide went out, you let it roll over and scrape the sides, scrape the bottoms. Anyhow,
That's how my girl did it too.
most
Now,
of
this is
them,
phosphate, Wesley, or was.
they get phosphate rock from the mines in Polk County and bring it over here and make sulfuric acid, superphosphate fertilizer product, and that type of thing. And this big pile here on your left is the residue that is a silica type stuff. And well, that's where the racetrack is.
See this pile over here?
Yeah, the pile over
Oh
here.
yeah, they got a pile over here now.
When Meemaw came to move down here, Taylor,
Yeah.
she saw that. She thought, oh, it's a mountain in Florida.
Huh.
She's all excited.
About as close as it gets.
That's as close as it gets.
Wow. That's a lot.
You'd think they'd use that more for field, wouldn't you?
It could be.